Hello and welcome back to episode 3 on my tutorial series. In this episode, I'll be showing you how to navigate your options menu, both from in-game and from the title screen. To start us off, I'll show you the title screen. I've shown you this a bunch of times, but instead of clicking single player, you go down to options down here. And this will bring you to your options menu. You'll notice in this menu it has less buttons to choose from than if you opened it in your world. The other option is by pressing the escape key while you're inside your world and then clicking on options down here, and that will open up the same things, except you'll notice that this up here, it now says difficulty, and that's the only difference to the menus opening up inside a world and outside of a world. Most of these don't require you to do anything with. So credits, telemetry data, resource packs, and language. Unless you need to change your language, you're not going to use the language thing. Resource packs and these other two, I will not be explaining in this video. Resource packs have been explained before, but in this video I'm just going to be talking about chat settings, video settings, controls, and music and sounds. This is your video settings. When you click into it, it opens up this massive screen of things. Most of these are for making your game run faster. Map levels just makes it so that things that are farther away look more neat than if they were close up. So like if you had it on 4, things far away are really neat and it looks very smooth. But if things were on 1, it would be very messy and it wouldn't look as good. But this also impacts performance. If you want your game to be running faster, then setting this button here lower means that you can run faster. The most useful buttons here is render distance, simulation distance, the max frame rate, brightness, and GUI scale. GUI scale, when pressed, causes it to change how big things are. So as you can see here, 4 is really big. This is really useful for if you have bad eyes and don't wear glasses, because you can read all the things really easily. When you click it again, it sets it to auto. This is what it's set to always. Whenever you log in, it's always set to auto. When you click it again, it changes it to 1. 1 is almost impossible to see, but it's useful when you want to show like your cool enchanted pickaxe or something, but all the enchants don't show up on your screen. So you have to make it to GUI scale 1, and then you can see all your enchantments because it's a big a long list or something. GUI scale 2 is better than GUI scale 1, but I recommend having GUI scale 3. That's the in-between between really big and really small. It's really useful to have it be small like this, but also be big, where it's not taking up the whole screen, but it's also not like the itty-bitty tiny text you can barely see. Next up is brightness. Brightness just controls how bright your game is. I recommend having it either to bright or having it at default, which is 50. Unless you want the creepy aspect, and then you set it to moody. Next up is your render distance. Render distance renders how many chunks you can see. So for me, it's currently set to 8, and that means I can see a certain distance. When I set it up to 32, it means that I can see a farther distance, but it also means that my game starts to run slower. So the amount of render distance you have affects how slow or fast your computer will load things. Because if you're loading 32 chunks at a time, then your game will run a lot slower because it's having to load all those chunks all at once. Now, simulation distance is basically the same thing, except simulation distance is the area around you that is loaded. It may be better sometimes, but the higher it is, the lower your performance. Render distance is what you can see, simulation is what is loaded. Frame rate is just how many frames you can let your game run on. You can either have it be 10, which is very slow and you don't want to have it on 10, or you can have it on unlimited. So having it at 10 causes you to lag a bunch, and having it at unlimited causes you to have like the smoothest turn speed ever. unless you look at something that's using up a lot of frame rate, in which it will go down very fast and you will start to lag out. So make sure you don't have something that crashes your frame rate in your world, because that would be bad and you wouldn't be able to look at that specific spot ever again. Next up, we have view bobbing. View bobbing basically makes it so that when it's on, while you walk, there is a bob to your head motion while you walk. So it actually looks like you're walking. After that, we have attack indicator. Attack indicator is just indicates when you can steal a crit. I'll explain this more in the combat video. There's a lot to the combat video. I'm going to mention it a few times, but there's a lot to the combat video. Next up is graphics. Graphics is how the game renders the world. So if you looked at a block that was transparent, that you could see through, on fast, you wouldn't be able to see through that block. It would be blacked out and it would be all flat. But on fancy, you would see through the block and it would show what's behind the block through the block. So if you're looking at leaves, it would show either more leaves behind the leaves or the wood that's in the center of the tree. At the end of this video, I will go through everything and I'll show some recommendations for if you have a potato PC, as they call it, which is a PC or Mac that doesn't run as fast. I'll show a list of things that you can use in video settings that will make your game run faster. Now, you might have a really powerful computer that can run the best games with hundreds of thousands of FPS. Now, if you have that, you don't need to use those settings. You can use the fanciest graphics you want. You can use the maximum render distance you want. You can have all these things on the maximum they can be. Graphics has 3 modes: fast, fancy, which I've already explained, and the final one, fabulous. Fabulous uses screen shaders for drawing weather, clouds, and particles behind translucent blocks and water. I believe it also shows some 3D-ness to certain blocks, but that might just be me, and I might have had shaders on at the time. I don't recommend having Fabulous on when you start out because it's using a lot of stuff. It's running things very heavily in your background. So don't use it if you have a potato computer. Next 2 is clouds and particles. Particles are just things that little dots or cubes that appear on your screen when you have either a specific block or you hit a mob. Basically, they're there, and if you don't want to see as many of them, you can turn your particles to minimal. If you want to see all of them, you have them at all. If you want just a little bit in between, you have them at decreased. For clouds, having them at fancy shows some 3D block clouds in the sky that you can look at, and they look all nice. Having them off shows no clouds. You don't see any clouds. And having them at fast shows the square outline, but no 3D to them. There are these other ones down here: distortion effects, field of view effects, glint speed, background menu blur. Those don't matter as much because those are just for if you don't want this certain thing to happen. For instance, if you're shooting a bow, charges up, and your field of view changes, you can then go to your field of view effects and turn that down, grabbing the little bar and moving it across. And you can turn that down and you won't see that happen as much. And that's it for video settings. Next, I'm going to go to music and sounds. Music and sounds, you have your master volume, music, which is currently off for me, and that's because I don't want to get copyrighted on these videos if I have Minecraft music just playing in the background, which I don't know if that would happen or not. But Microsoft can be Microsoft, and I don't know what they were going to do if I played Minecraft music in the background. You have jukebox note blocks, which are a certain block in the game that plays sound. Weather, if you don't want weather, you can turn that to 0, and you're never hearing weather again. Blocks, which is just things breaking and placing, how loud do you want that to be. Hostile creatures, these are the bad ones. Have this on a higher percentage, because if you have it low, you won't be able to hear them sneaking up on you. You don't want that to happen. You want to be knowing that they're there and not be surprised when suddenly they're behind you and jump out at you. Friendly creatures, I have them on off because they're annoying and loud, and I didn't want them interrupting my video. But all of these are set to 100 when you first log in to any version. They're always set to 100, and you can change them later on. But friendly creatures are basically like chickens, cows, pigs, whether or not you want to hear them oink or cluck like a chicken would. For players, this is for if you're doing realms or multiplayer. It means that you can hear other players running around. Ambient or environment, that makes it so that you can hear the ambience around you. Let's say you're walking on sand, you can hear your footsteps on the sand. It makes it more immersive for you playing the game. Voice and speech is only for narrator. If you have narrator off, it will not play anything, and if you have it on, this is how you control how loud you want it to be. I'm going to set this to 50 because narrator has turned on several times and it's really, really loud, and I don't like that. Directional audio is basically like, do you want to hear noises coming from your left headphone, or do you want to hear it coming from right headphone? Then you turn on directional audio, and it just makes it so that you can hear with like surround sound. So if something's dead in front of you, you hear it from both headphones, but it sounds like it's directly in front of you. You know that thing where you're listening to music and it sounds like something's going off from one ear to the other? It's kind of like that. Next up, I'll be talking about chat settings. Chat settings basically just show you how the chat looks. So chat text opacity means that do you want to see the color or like the text in the chat? You can set that lower, both to 10% so it's barely visible. Chat text size means that chat is not as big, not covering your screen or something. Chat delay, which is usually set to none, means that let's say your stream is going at about 5-second delay. You can set this to 5 seconds. And that means that when someone says something on stream, or someone says something in the world, that delay will come up in your world at basically around the same time that it comes up in the stream. You can set it maximum to 6 seconds and lowest to none. Now there's text background opacity, which is just, do you want to see behind the text, or do you want there to be a black box behind the text? I have mine at 50 so I can see through it, but it's not like I can't read the chat at all because it's all white and I can't see the background. Line spacing, just how much space do you want per line in the text. Now here's the narrator. Narrator, as I shown before, narrates everything. So basically if you're blind, it will narrate what you're looking at or what you're holding or whatnot to show you or have you hear what's going on around you. These 4 things at the bottom here, you don't need to turn on, but here's the thing for parents. If your child is young, turn on only show secure chat, which means that players who have not been verified, their messages cannot show up. So if you don't want your kid to see a bunch of swearing and stuff on the chat, turn this on, and only the people that are verified can send those messages. If the person that is verified, though, sends a message that is bad, you'll still see it, but this will make it so that you only see the people that are verified, because some people bad out there on the internet and don't know that there's kids on this game, and they start talking about something that's really bad that kids should not see. Next up, we have web links and prompt on links. That's basically if there's a link in the chat and you click on it, it sends a prompt saying, do you want to open this? And then it goes there. Colors means that you could see the colors of the chat, because you can type with colors. I don't know how to do that, but there is a way to do it, and I recommend searching up online, or I will leave something in the description that will take you to a website on how to do that. Chat shown is just whether or not you want it to see commands, hidden, or shown. And that's it for chat settings. Now I'm on to my final settings. Now we're going to controls. Controls has the sneak and sprint buttons, auto jump, and an operator's items tab. Operator items tab, if you're in a creative world and you turn that on, you'll get an extra tab in your creative menu that allows you to use command blocks or have the secret paintings or all those other things. all of the stuff you don't normally see in the game. Mouse settings, when you click into that, has some buttons. Touchscreen mode, I'm not sure how that works, because some computers don't have a touchscreen. Sensitivity and scroll sensitivity are two different things. Sensitivity is how fast, if you moved your mouse IRL, how fast you want your character to move in the game. That's what that is. And scroll sensitivity is if you're using the scroll wheel to create an inventory or something, it scrolls down the page a certain amount. So if I have it here at 1, it means that every time I use the scroll wheel, it scrolls down one line of blocks. If I have it set higher than that, it scrolls down more. If I have it set lower than that, it scrolls down slower. I recommend not setting it lower than 1 because it's just going to get painful to scroll down the bar. But try not to have it at something like 10 because that will make it really, really hard to pick out blocks. Now invert mouse basically makes it so that instead of moving your mouse away from you to look up and towards you to look down, you move towards you to look up and away from you to look down, which makes some sense, but if you're not used to that or you don't start with it, I recommend having it off. Now, going back out from this menu, you press on Done and it sends you back to the control screen. Now, here's the one that when I click on it, it will give you a lot of things. Don't worry though, a lot of these can be ignored. These are just keybinds. So let's say you want to have your space button, your jump key on like J or something. I don't know why you'd do that, but let's say you want to have it on J. You click on the space bar and it'd show these two little arrows. Then you press whatever key you want and it sets it to that. If you want to change it back, you just click on reset and it sets it back to its default. And as you can see here, there's a lot of keybinds to this. When something's set as not bound, it means when you try and click on that button to do the thing, it doesn't do it. You also have this reset keys down at the bottom, which instead of going through and clicking each and every reset button, you just click this one and it resets everything back to normal. As I said before, I'll be showing you a little image on screen for the suggested settings that you should use if you have a potato computer. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoy, you can leave a like down below, maybe comment your thoughts, and maybe you can even subscribe. But you don't have to. Goodbye.